I want to welcome to Pastor Blast. Today is Tuesday, July 15th. Last week we started our sermon series on Revelation. And these Pastor Blasts this month are here to hopefully prime the pump for your imagination. It takes imagination to really understand Revelation and also give you some things to think about in advance of the coming sermon. Just a quick review. A week ago we introduced some keys to interpreting Revelation. Number one, this is a pastoral letter. Pastor John is intending this letter to both instruct and inform and inspire God's people. That's its purpose. The second thing is it's best to read Revelation more like poetry than prophecy. This material, apocalyptic material, is here to inspire us more than to give us information about how the world is going to end. It's more for the heart than it is the head. I think, sadly, a lot of Christians will find themselves in something of a scavenger hunt, looking around the Bible, trying to read the signs and assign dates and so forth to find clues that really aren't there, I think, because Jesus himself says in the Gospels, he says, it is not for you and I to know the time and the date and how this is all going to come about. That's kind of God's business, not ours. The third thing is we read Revelation from a heavenly perspective. This is really unique in the Bible. It's like when we're reading it, we're right next to the throne of God. There is an unveiling. And that's what apocalypse means. It means disclosure, unveiling of invisible, eternal realities that are shared with us. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz when we get a look behind the curtain. So chapter 1 last week, we met the exalted Christ, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the one who has the keys to heaven and hell. Well, today we're preparing for next Sunday's sermon, which is about the 7 churches. This is what you'll find in chapters 2 and 3. Pastor John writes to 7 churches. They're Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. And what he does is he circulates a letter. And all these churches that he serves are on the same postal route in Asia Minor or in modern-day Turkey. Now, my understanding is these 7 churches do not represent historical periods or epochs in history. Some theology and interpretation of Revelation has that. It's called dispensationalism. They even have their own unique translation of the Bible, the Scofield Bible. I don't think that is helpful. Rather, I think these churches really represent churches from yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Churches like ours in the United States, these Christians and these churches deal with the same issues that you and I deal with. In Revelation, it's the Roman Empire. Well, for us, it's the American Empire. A couple things here. I think you can separate the struggles these churches are having into 3 categories. First of all, there is the churches that are dealing with a pressure. They're kind of slipping into conforming to the culture. It's hard to tell the difference between the church and the imperial cult that's, so pervasive at that time. And there's suggestion in the letters that these churches are very affluent and they have almost too much activity. This is directed to Ephesus, Thyatira, and Pergamum. And maybe they're so busy that they have neglected, that's what John calls it, they've neglected their first love, abandoned their first love. And that, of course, is to be loving Jesus, which is the first and foremost responsibility of the church. And that's a good question for all churches and individuals, We look at our calendar here at PLC. The calendar's full. We've got busy, productive, organized things and people going on. But is this getting in the way of us loving Jesus? That's why we need a robust worship life. The second category is churches that are experiencing suffering and local persecution. This is Smyrna and Philadelphia. These churches, these persons are feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling outnumbered, wondering where is God as they feel under siege. Well, in his letters, John commends them for their fight and their faithfulness. This is a good one for us to wonder with. How do you and I do? How does our congregation do when we deal with significant sorrow or loss or crisis, when we're wondering, where is God for us? The third category is the most critical of all the letters. This is directed to Sardis and Laodicea because they had become comfortable and complacent. And what's notable here is that these churches don't have any real external threat. They're not under threat of persecution or anything. And there's not any internal sorts of suffering that's going on as they're experiencing, with Smyrna and Philadelphia. So there's really nothing negative going on, but it's like this spiritual atrophy has come. This is one of the most, acidic comments in all the Bible when John says to them, and this is speaking for Jesus, he's saying to the church at Laodicea, you are neither hot nor cold, you're lukewarm. And frankly, I'd rather that you were either hot or cold because I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. Well, that's the kind of thing that Revelation does. It kind of wakes us up because Jesus is talking to you and me too if we're too cozy and comfortable. And this is what Revelation does. It kind of wakes us up with that question, because I don't want to be spit out of God's mouth, and I know you don't either. But this is some of our the teaching and the learning and the experience of Revelation. Amen.